Welcome to another Mathconnect tutorial. In this lesson, you'll be learning how to convert fractions and decimals to percentages and back again. The skills required for this lesson are that you know how to divide and multiply. Before we begin, there is one rule that you need to remember. When you're converting fractions and decimals to a percentage, you need to multiply that fraction or decimal by 100. So let's take a look. In the first example, we're asked to convert 1/2 into a percentage. So how do we do that? Remember the rule. Converting a fraction to a percentage, you need to multiply that fraction by 100. So let's do that. 1/2 multiplied by 100. And as you know, 100 can be written as 100 over 1. So when we multiply fractions, it's top times top over bottom times bottom. So top times top is 1 times 100, which is 100. And bottom times bottom, which is 2 times 1, the answer is 2. So now we have 100 over 2, which is 50%. If we look at the second example, 1/4. To change 1/4 into a percentage, we do exactly the same thing. We write 1/4 multiplied by 100 over 1. Again, top times top. So 100 times 1 is 100. Bottom times bottom, 4 times 1, which is 4. And you know that 100 divided by 4 is 25. So the answer is 25%. For our final example, let's convert 3/4 into a percentage. So we do exactly the same thing. We write 3/4 and we multiply that by 100, or 100 over 1. So top times top, which is 300, over bottom times bottom, which is 4. And 300 divided by 4 is 75. So the answer is 75%. Now let's take a look at how we convert decimals into a percentage. Let's take a look at the first example, which asks you to convert 0.25 into a percentage. Again, the rule is exactly the same. When you're converting a decimal to a percentage, you multiply that decimal by 100. So let's do that. 0.25 multiplied by 100. Now, as you know, when you multiply a decimal by 100, you shift the decimal point over 2 spaces because 100 has 2 zeros. So when you do that, 0.25 becomes 25%. Similarly, let's look at the second example, which is 0.6. Let's convert 0.6 into a percentage. We write down 0.6 multiplied by 100. Once again, we move the decimal point over 2 spaces, so it would be 0.6, and we move this over twice. So there would be a 0 there, and the answer is 60%. And the final example, converting 0.345 into a percentage. Again, we do exactly the same thing. We write down 0.45 and we multiply that by 100. We move the decimal point over twice. So 0.345 multiplied by 100 becomes 34.5%. So now let's take a look at how we convert percentages into a fraction. In the first example, we have 50%, and we're asked to convert that into a fraction. Well, what do? The rule is that when you convert percentages into a fraction, you divide by 100. That is, we put the percentage number over 100. So 50% as a fraction would look like 50 over 100. And when you simplify 50 over 100, you get 1/2. Similarly, converting 25% into a fraction would be 25 over 100. And when you simplify that, that becomes 1/4. So let's do 75%. Again, 75 over 100. And when you simplify that, that becomes 3/4. So sometimes you get a question similar to example D, which on first glance looks a little bit awkward, but all you have to do is follow the same rules that we've been going through with a slight variation at the end. So let's take a look at that. So if we follow the rules, it would be 34.1 over 100. Now, generally, when we write fractions, we don't like to have a decimal in that fraction. So 34.1 poses a bit of a problem. However, we can overcome that problem by changing or converting 34.1 into a whole number. And how do we do that? Well, we simply multiply the numerator, that is 34.1, by a factor of 10. And as you know, when you multiply any number by 10, you move the decimal to the right one spot. So 34.1 becomes 341. Now, as you've multiplied the numerator by 10, you also need to multiply the denominator by 10. So the denominator becomes 100 times 10, which, as you know, is 1000. So in an exam, when you get a question similar to question D here, if you wrote 34.1 over 100, your teacher's going to give you partial marks. However, you take that one extra step, that is, making the numerator a whole number, and changing that to 341 over 1000, you'll get the full marks. Now let's take a look at how we convert percentages into a decimal. Similar to changing a percentage into a fraction, we follow the same rules and we divide the percentage by 100 to get us to a decimal. How do I do that? So instead of putting 29 over 100, we write it this way. We say 29 divided by 100. And as you know, when we divide by 100, we move the decimal point to the left twice. So that would be 1, 2, and the decimal point would lie there. So the answer would be 0.29. So 29% as a decimal is 0.29. So let's take a look at example B. Again, we rewrite this to 50 divided by 100. We move the decimal spot twice to the left, and it becomes 0.50. Example C would be 83 divided by 100. Again, shifted over to the left twice, it becomes 0.83. Now, in our very last example, there are 4 digits, so that doesn't really affect anything. It just looks complicated, but it isn't. So we rewrite it, 94.25 divided by 100. And as we know, we shift the decimal point over to the left 2 times. So the answer becomes 0.9425. So there you have it, a quick and easy way to convert fractions and decimals into percentages, or converting percentages into fractions and decimals. All you have to do is follow these 2 rules and you'll never go wrong. As always, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please support the channel by subscribing and spread the word.